What do you say, guys? Alabama football practice is underway, and we're expecting to hear from Kane Womack, the defensive coordinator, Nick Sheridan, the offensive coordinator. So the the DC and the OC coming up right here on the Bama Tailgate YouTube channel. Roll Tide, everybody. Let me do what I do here and get this thing started. And as soon as those guys are up, we're going to listen to them and we're going to talk about what we expect to hear and then what we do here. So here we hear. Roll Tide. Oh, there he is. Big Elmo, big sexy Elmo. He's just
That's right.
A label now that he's a morning show host again. At Brett Elmore Show, WJLX. All you guys in the comments section. Good to see you, Bob. Roll Tide. I'm Mick Gillispie at Broadcaster Mick. And we are live expecting a press conference here. So what do you think?
What do we have? What do we have today? Do we have Womack only? I thought we had the defensive coordinator today and the offensive coordinator on Friday. Have they changed it up? I'm not sure.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. So it'd be Womack today and then Sheridan on Friday. Yeah, I'm still getting used to the new way of doing things, which is definitely worth talking about, right? Because there's a lot of new going on right now. And Chris Lowe, our friend Chris Lowe, with a tremendous story that was released talking about Nick Saban leaving, the great job that was done to replace him by Greg Byrne, who's been an excellent athletics director. And then, obviously getting DeBoer and, what that was like. But some really interesting stuff said in that article from Nick Saban, and it's going to be worth keeping an eye on, and talking about whether it's before the press conference or after. But wow, I was a little surprised by some of that stuff.
I was too, and we knew because we had talked about it, I think, in the past, that we would be hearing, some stuff later on down the line of kind of what really happened, what was going on, what was. And we'll hear more stuff too as things progress. But yeah, an excellent piece that has been picked up by just about everyone associated or wants to be associated with Alabama football by Chris Lowe. And but it looks like, and like I say, we'll talk about it either before or after the presser. It's up to you, Mick. But it looks like that this was actually in the works for 2 years.
Yeah, and that was something that was not surprising to me. Where Nick Saban was like, "Hey, I don't know how long I'm going to do this for," and was basically because he's an older guy, right?
Yeah.
With that said, I mean, give him credit. I mean, he did a great job, and Byrne did have a little bit of leeway, I guess, just knowing that. At the end of the season, Coach Saban had told him before, hey, you know what? I mean, I'm kind of getting to that point. But still, just seeing it happen, I mean, after they were so close to winning a national championship, to me is just still amazing. I mean, we knew Saban was the best. And, and obviously this season played out to that. And there were a lot of things that could have gone better. But, when it's all said and done, it really was a great coaching job, one of the best he's had.
Yeah, one of the best he's had, but there was some things going on that that didn't sit well with him, and one of them being NIL, one of them being player attitude.
Mm-hmm. We'll get into that because I'll tell you, man, I do the show with Jake Coker, Elephant in the Room, and Jake, kind of kept saying that NIL played a big part in it, played a part in it. I felt like it was more, and they addressed it in there too, that Saban couldn't kind of deal with coordinators all the time, going from one coordinator to another, all the 7 offensive coordinators in 11 years, just, constant staff upheaval. But him talking about the way that the players reacted after losing the football game. And then when he talked to them, all they were asking about was how much playing time they were going to have in NIL. That to me was a really telling statement by him.
Yes, it was. I always thought it was about NIL and how the college game had changed so much because he, like you mentioned, he was an older guy and he was old school. And this was not the game that he fell in love with anymore. It's not the game that I fell in love with or
Right.
anyone else really. This is almost turning into a semi-pro league.
No, almost about it.
Yeah. I mean, let's put it like it is. It's a semi-pro league now. I mean, it's just not as pure as it once was. But this, from what I gather, he talked with Greg Byrne 2 years ago and said, "I just don't. We're going to have to carry this by year basis." So that gave basically a 2-year notice.
Well, you
And that's
start
what
to look at the guys that transferred out too, Brett. And I mean, maybe you don't want Caleb Downs on your team. Maybe you don't want Isaiah Bond on your team. What if they're some of those guys that instead of worrying about how you're going to repeat as SEC champs and win the national championship, they're asking you about NIL money. I mean, he said 80% of the players, 80%.
Yeah. And that was surprising to me. He said, and I quote him here. He said, "I thought we was going to have a hell of a team this year, but when you have 8 out of 10 players asking about, am I going to play or not? I may transfer, or how much money am I going to get? That's not what he signed up for. I mean, no, I mean that's not what he signed up for. And there was some other things too. He was frustrated with the attitude of the team, throwing their helmets when we lost the game. All that stuff, he doesn't like. He didn't like the attitude. He was disappointed with you got to win with class.
Yeah, right.
And they weren't doing that. And then Miss Terry had some involvement in it with a trip to Florida. And he got some advice from a couple of old coaches.
Yep, Gene Stallings.
Gene Stallings was one of them. Bill Parcells was another one.
Yeah.
So he thought this through a lot, and I think it just got to the point to where he just threw his hands up in the air and said, "You know what? I've done my job. It's time to retire, and I'm done."
Yeah. And it really makes a lot more sense to me now because I just, I figured it was you're 72. It's hard to do anything at 72. It's hard to get up and be, him saying that he was tired after the Iron Bowl and stuff like that. But this seeing the mental picture of these kids that this is supposed to be amateur athletics, which we know it's not anymore. And maybe it never was, but it was supposed to. And then all of a sudden they're worried about their playing time and money and they're going to transfer and all that. I mean, you're playing for Nick Saban, for God's sakes. I mean, isn't that the top of the mountain?
Yeah, it is. It is, or it was.
Yeah.
And also something else, and you touched on it, was he was tired of going through assistant coaches.
Yeah.
I mean, it was every year seemingly, and then he felt like he couldn't assure them that he was going to be around.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, I still believe that that day before he met with the team, I really do believe it was a last minute decision. I think something happened that flipped him that day that said, you know what, this is it. I'm done.
Yeah, right.
I'm done. So,
well, when when you get to that age and you've done it all, if you're not enjoying it, then it's time to move on. But the thing that stuck out to me about the whole thing was we heard rumors that he might go to Texas somewhere around 2013, 2014.
Yeah.
And I believe that was true. I really think
Yeah, I
that
do too.
and I think that it's been kind of proven, but I thought it was true back then. And one of the things that he was worried about was the team paying attention to what he was saying, getting the message.
Mhm.
Being basically the process, right?
Yeah.
And it sounds like this was the year where he felt like he just wasn't getting through to him anymore, and you could tell. I mean, look, how many
Yeah.
times did we talk about Jermaine Burton, like, the push, in Tennessee, the personal foul penalties, just some of the stuff that he did on the field that you were like, I'm not saying he's a bad guy or anything, but I mean, it was just not Alabama stuff, running over and taunting the other teams,
Yeah.
student section. That's not what we kind of built this tradition on, right? That's even going back to Bear Bryant, but Saban certainly was part of that. And you could just feel it, got a snapper that just doesn't snap the ball, can't figure that out, I mean, but, and then, looking at especially Isaiah Bond, when I like Bond for catching that pass, but him bolting out, he didn't even wait around he didn't even care what Coach DeBoer had to say. He was going to cash in on that big catch and make some money. And that's what this has turned into. I mean, this isn't an indictment of him. It's an indictment of the system. The system has turned into that. How fast can you cash in, and the NCAA or, whatever, they're going to have to figure out a way to at least corral it a little bit, because right now the rails are off.
Yeah, and we talked about it earlier in the season. You was talking about those incidents and everything, but I think we'd made the point, or at least I talked about the basics of this team. The penalties, we can't even snap the ball.
Yeah.
I mean, that's high school stuff. That's pee-wee stuff. It's like it was not the same, and it's sad to see. But the question is, what if there was no NIL and there was no, this portal stuff or whatever? Would Nick Saban still be the head coach? I think he would.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, but I mean, eventually he was going to retire anyway. And
I mean, you got to retire at some point. I mean, we know that, and kudos to him for giving Greg Byrne a heads up, because if that's true in the report, which I'm sure it is, that gave Greg Byrne plenty of time to start. And I read a piece on that about his process of finding a new coach and the analytics that went with it, and the whole nine yards. I mean, it was an interesting read.
Yeah.
But,
well, I told everyone on here, you guys, I hope you listened. I said that Lane Kiffin was never a candidate for the job, and he wasn't. I was surprised, though, that the same being the case for Dabo. I figured Dabo would have been a candidate for the job, not just based off of the 2 national championships and the Alabama connection, but from what that article says, you're talking about Norvell, and you're talking about the guy they got.
Yeah, it came down to DeBoer and Norvell, and between the two, I believe I would have went the same route as Greg Byrne.
Yeah,
I think
but they're both good coaches. I mean, look.
Yeah. I don't think you could go wrong, but and maybe it's because we're kind of getting used to Coach DeBoer now a little bit, getting to know him, and I think it's a good fit. So I'm happy with it, but yeah, Lane was never going to get the job.
No.
And I'm surprised too that Dabo, I don't know if he burned some bridges or what the deal may be. I don't know.
Well, I think it's more than that. I think that it comes down to Dabo not adjusting to this modern era of football.
Yeah, I mean, they
worked
were hot
for
for
him.
so long,
Yeah.
and he was a hot name for so long. But have you noticed? I mean, it's kind of fizzled out, hasn't it?
Yeah, no
In
doubt.
a pretty bad league,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. No, I mean, he's and I didn't hear one person say, "Oh, I'm sad that we didn't get Dabo." I was in
No,
the Dabo camp, and I'm going to tell you, I was in a very select few. There wasn't many people that agreed with me that Dabo would have been a great hire. I think he would have been a great hire. I still think that, but you know what? I think they got a great coach, and it worked out the way that it was supposed to work out, and there's nothing wrong with that, you know. But
right?
and how about this? And I also want to talk about Bob, who puts a great comment in there. He found it interesting the four players that Byrne reached out to. Um, I Kiffin was going to be Florida State's. That's who they were going to go after if Norvell went to Alabama. So interesting, interesting.
Kiffin would fit in at Florida State, I think. Um, by the way, Kiffin has he's made some news today too, as he's hired a former Alabama star as an analyst, and that uh, the other day he hired Zach Arnett that used to play at Mississippi State. Now William Vallejos is now an analyst for Kiffin.
Yeah, it feels like they're going all in. Like
Yeah, it really does, doesn't it?
they feel like they've kind of, and they do have a really good team. I mean, on paper, you got to go out there and perform. No Nick Saban to deal with anymore. But the four players that Byrne reached out to, it was like Smitty and Jalen Hurts, right?
Okay, yeah.
Do you remember this in the story?
I did not see this part. No, I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, definitely, I'm gonna look it back up because just sitting here talking about it. But unless one of you guys in the comments section throws it up, but I know it was like, I want to say it was like Smitty and Jalen Hurts and two other players, and I was thinking to myself, like, what would that conversation be like? When
Yeah,
you call
yeah.
Smitty,
I mean,
hey, what do you
what do you think about this
Mark
guy?
Ingram,
Oh, okay.
which is a good one. I mean, he's in media now, so he's
Yeah,
oh, and Joe Namath. Okay, that's what it was. Yeah. So
Joe
that's a pretty
Namath,
interesting
of
group
course,
right there. Yeah.
of course. Broadway Joe, man, you got to get his opinion.
Yeah. What do you think he said?
Who knows? What a great character Joe Namath
Yeah.
is and was. I mean, at the university, man, a classic. A
Yeah.
classic.
So
Yeah. Yeah, but some great reporting by Chris Lowe, and I know Mick, you've known Chris a long time, and he's the senior writer there at ESPN, and he that was a great piece that he put out today, and he's always been well connected with the Alabama program.
Well,
So
when I
when
say ESPN, we don't like ESPN. He is not who I'm talking about.
right, yeah. I mean, when you see
I
the
don't
name
even
Chris
consider him
Lowe,
ESPN. What's that?
I said when you see the name Chris Lowe, go ahead and read the article because
Yeah, right.
it's going to be good.
Yeah, no, he's the best in the business, and he's a hard worker and a good guy, and knows his stuff, and it doesn't surprise me that the best story that's come out of this whole thing comes from him, and it really shed a lot of light on this whole situation to me.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
and we knew that this was going to come out eventually, and it did. Kind of the as Paul Harvey would say, the rest of the story.
yeah,
And but Greg Byrne had a great plan. He was talking about the analytics, and he said that 75% of the time you're basically hiring a group of 5 head coach, Power 5 coordinator, or NFL coordinator.
hmm
Um, and and just going through that process, and like I say, he kept a list and kept an eye out because he knew this day was coming, and finally went with DeBoer.
yeah. Well, he he told those guys 72 hours. He got it done in like 48 hours.
Yeah.
Got the guy. We got really the best coach you could have asked for. DeBoer's attitude's been fantastic. He's embraced this challenge. And I love that, man. I mean, I love the fact that we're seeing kind of the start of something different here. Where I mean, we're supposedly waiting on the coordinators to talk, which is something that never happened before. Kind of going over practice and everything else. And the post practice interviews, and it was always Saban. And it was just partly because Saban wanted to be a unified message. They didn't want any problems in the locker room because something was said, and then the parents, and you're dealing with the parents and the kids, and at least if he said it, it was kind of like, hey, it came from him. Also, when you say something in those press conferences, people listen to it and they're like, oh, well, wait a second, and there could be issues that come from things that are being said. It was always kind of, even when the players spoke, it was very select guys that went and talked, right?
Yeah, and supposedly today we're going to hear from Womack and some players, some defensive players. So I don't know. I haven't seen a list of what players we may hear from. I don't know anything about that, but we'll see. They got a late start on Monday. Of course, it cleared up here in north central Alabama today, so they probably were able to practice outside, and we'll see what they have to say. It'll be interesting to hear from Womack.
Are you surprised that Dan Lanning wasn't really talked about more in that story? Because remember, we were told by some people that that he was on a plane, on his way to Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, and there was no mention of that. So I don't know if we got thrown a curveball or what happened. But yeah, he wasn't on the list. But from the outset, they say that DeBoer and Norvell, that was his top two, and looking for someone who had obviously is a winner, but won on the big stage. And DeBoer was so close to winning a national championship last year, and of course Alabama was too. So they're both kind of on a mission right now, to get to that point again.
Right. Yeah, I thought that that whole Lanning thing could have possibly been a smokescreen.
Yeah,
I just watching the way that the board dismantled him for 3 straight times was beautiful.
yeah. I think we got I think we got fooled by that. Good job though.
Jim wants to know, did you get your Elvis attire yet? We did have David Lee, the renowned Elvis tribute artist. I don't want to say impersonator, because I think that if you guys haven't seen David perform, it really is amazing how accurate the performances are. It's not like, some guy at a craft show. I mean, this guy comes out, the band, the whole act. It's like amazing. And he's a big Bama fan. And Brett, of course, you said that you were going to try to be the big Elvis.
Yeah, the bloated Elvis. From the
peanut butter and banana and bacon.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah. The bloated Elvis, because you're always going to have a young Elvis guy. You're always going to have that Vegas Elvis guy, which David did a great job with that. But then no one does that 70. What is it, about 77?
Like Elvis in Tuscaloosa that last time.
Yeah, or even in Birmingham, where one time he split his pants and had to change. I saw. It was funny because I saw that online the other night. And I was going to send it to you, Mick, but because he actually came back out with the pants that had a big rip right down the back end of it. But to answer Jim's question, I have not ordered my attire yet, but
Might be time to do it.
It may be time to do it.
Yeah. Well, nothing.
If you could be a tribute artist of anyone, who would you choose?
Who, me?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how you could go wrong with Elvis. I mean, I know there's a lot of them, but man, I mean,
Yeah.
the songs are cool. The outfits are cool. I mean, part of the thing is like you give sashes and kiss people, which is
Yeah.
crazy. So if you did that, you could do
See,
that.
I couldn't be the leather Elvis. I mean, the leather would not work with me. And then so I'd probably have to find some like, yeah, it would just go south. I'd have to be in latex or something. Latex Elvis.
Right. Well, kind of switching back to Alabama talk here. Basketball.
I was going to ask you about that, man.
Yeah,
I was doing election last night.
I was not. This team is in trouble right now. I mean,
yeah.
Now, with that said, they're one of those teams. They're going to get into the tournament. They're free falling as far as the spots go. They need to come back and they need to beat Arkansas and they need to have a strong SEC tournament. But they are dangerous in the sense that they're going through their bad time right now.
Yeah.
Right? They're having their identity crisis now. So get that out of the way, and maybe instead of being the number 1 overall seed and not doing anything with it last year, they're the team that gets hot in the tournament and just bombs everyone away. It was just another one of those games. They don't play defense, and if they don't score a bunch of points, they lose.
Yeah. They still have Alabama at a 4 seed.
Do they?
Yeah. 14% chance to get to the Final Four, and a 3% chance to win the whole tournament. I don't know. Yeah, they're going to end up probably being a 4 or 5 seed. But yeah, I mean, look, you want to play your best basketball during the tournament. You get hot during the tournament, man. You know how it happens. That's why they call it March Madness.
Right.
If you're going to go through a bad time, go through it during the latter part of the regular season. Maybe you'll wake up a little bit and play well in the tournament.
Yeah.
They're going to make the tournament, but they're just going to have to. They're going to have to get hot, man, and play defense. Good grief, please play defense.
Yeah, they need you to get out there and just pick up 5 fouls. Just
yeah. You just tell me. Yeah, they need me to just guard the lane.
Yeah, right. Like
the entire lane.
Yeah, just get in there and a couple hard ones early, and then you could go sit on the bench. You do your job in like 3 minutes. And
if you're going to foul hard. That's what a old school coach used to tell his players back in the early 90s that I knew, and of course that doesn't work anymore, or because you'll get a flagrant or whatever. But man, his teams, they foul hard.
Do you think that and Paul, thank you for hanging out with us, man, from Louisiana. Been a Bama fan since the 70s. The great Bear Bryant.
He's related to the Bear.
Yeah.
That's cool. But yeah, it's basketball. I don't even know when the tournament starts. The SEC tournament.
I think it's like next weekend.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah, because look, the next week. I mean, the last game is coming up this weekend, and then
it's got to be.
And then you play the tournament. We're waiting on the post-practice press conference. So we're kind of in a talk show pattern, which honestly I don't mind. I mean,
we're just hanging out. I mean, it's at least where I am, it's almost 6:30. I'm missing Wheel of Fortune just to hang out with you guys. Men's basketball tournament tips off. Is that right? March 8th?
Could be, yeah.
Okay. All right, very good. March 8th through the 12th at Bridgestone Arena.
So what do you think post
That's
practice?
right.
What do you think this post practice? You know, um, media conference is going to look like? What do you think they're going to talk about? Roll Tide, Paul. Thank you.
Well, obviously a lot of defense probably today. I don't know. Be interesting to see. And like you mentioned, we under Saban we hardly ever heard from the assistants. So we get a different perspective. And we all watched the DeBoer conference on Monday, and we got a couple of little nuggets out of it. Not a whole lot. So it'll be interesting to see kind of what nugget we may find in this press conference, and see what's asked and what we may be able to find out something new here as they
What
are
were you
in there.
surprised? Well, sorry to interrupt you. What were you surprised most about with DeBoer's press conference post game? I think the thing to me is just how comfortable he is. He just gets up there and talks, and he's got such a different personality than Nick Saban. But as nice as he is, there's a confidence about him that you really
Yeah,
have to pay attention to.
yeah, you're right. He seemed look. If it was me, and it was my first press conference after my first practice with the University of Alabama following Nick Saban, I would be a little nervous, and not to say that he wasn't, but he seemed cool. He seemed like he had done that a million times before, and he has at other schools. But he seems very confident, and he looks a whole lot different with the Alabama gear on. He reminded me a little bit of Doogie Howser. Uh, but
Brett, I gotta jump in here. Bob points this out, and I guess he's right. You
yeah,
looked at
that's
the
women's tournament.
women's. You looked at the women's. So
Yeah.
just keep going. You said he looks like Doogie Howser.
Well, he kind of does. March 13th through the 17th, I believe, is
There you
yeah,
go.
that's the men's tournament. I'm sorry, that was the dates for I guess the women. Apparently, my Google always searches the women for some reason. But what was we talking about?
DeBoer in the press conference. What about
Yeah, yeah.
assistants?
He kind of looked like Doogie Howser with the practice gear on. You didn't see him in the suit and tie and the hat, and he looks younger than with that on, but yeah, cool, calm, cool as a cucumber. I thought, and he he didn't he didn't shy away from any question. I think he answered everything pretty straightforward. And of course everybody was talking about the Milroe being the number one guy, and that's what we expected to begin with. I mean, good grief, he started last year. He's going to be taking snaps with the
Mhm.
number ones. I mean, it's his job to lose, and we've been over that several times. It's his job to lose, and but I thought he was honest in all of his answers, and I'm looking forward to seeing what Womack has to say today about our defense, and kind of, maybe even dive into some of those positions that we were talking about that may be of question, like the corners, and so we'll see. I mean, but here we are, waiting on them to hit the podium.
Yeah. Well, the thing that Womack's going to have is the experience of being at South Alabama and being the head coach. Now, being South Alabama's head coach is nothing like being Alabama's defensive coordinator and going up on
Right.
space, front of a podium and talking. You could say whatever you want at South Alabama, and people will pay attention and they'll respect what you have to say, but it doesn't make national news like it will at Alabama. I mean, you say the wrong thing or you say something, and all of a sudden, boom, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be commenting on that, and it's a great learning opportunity for young coaches to get up there and be in front of a real group of media. I mean, and I'm not saying that they're not in the Sun Belt. I'm just saying, like, it's just different, man. It's different. It's why you take the job, because they're going to tangle with you, like, and Saban kind of had these guys corralled pretty good. You know, 'cause they were scared of him.
Yeah, they were scared to death of him.
Right. Wait until these guys like they start to. I'm curious to see who's going to be the first one to really try to go after DeBoer or one of his
Yeah,
coaches, because we haven't seen that in a while. It used to happen a lot. Um,
yeah.
and then, and no one wanted to kind of cross the dictator, but I don't know, man. He's handled it so well though, man. I mean, like you can't knock him at all, DeBoer.
No, no, there's nothing to go after him about. But yeah, you're right. I mean, I'm sure you've been in those press conferences too, and I have, and then you'd have someone ask a question that you thought you'd turn around, look for a second, and you'd think, what is this guy? And then you would want to melt in your chair because it's like Saban's about to get him,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know.
yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that's something that the media is not used to, and we talked about some of the changes at practice, and today, and I don't think we mentioned this. Today was the first day that the media actually got to view
Yeah.
practice. That was a no with Saban.
Right. And how interesting is that to open it up again? You get, everybody's out there with their cell phones and their cameras and their videotaping, and what can you glean something from that? Well, you can glean something from that. I mean, and Jimmy Johnson basically told Jim Kelly that he figured he found out that they were going to use a Utah shovel in a Super Bowl because the pregame, a couple minutes of practice was filmed by a TV station. He watched it in his room at his hotel and saw it.
Yeah.
And that ended up being 2 losses and a fumble.
Right. Yeah. That's a great story, by the way. And
But it just shows you why you worry about that stuff.
right. I think the only exclusion on that, I forgot what the release was, but I know that there was no filming of either 7-on-7 or 11-on-11, or there's something you couldn't film, and I don't know how long the viewing period is for.
Mm-hmm.
But today was a good day for the media to get out there and see them, though, because, like I say, here in my part of Alabama, close to Tuscaloosa, closer than you, Meg, the sun started to shine, and it felt pretty good.
Yep.
Roll Tide, Maud.
Maud, I love that name.
I love that too.
Yeah, roll Tide to you. Still waiting. They were a little bit late last time, and
they were, and I was afraid this was going to happen. And Mick, I was covering the election last night. It was Super Tuesday, and covering it locally for the radio station here, and you get on the broadcast, and the polls close at like 7:00, but then you start your live stream like we did here, and it's like you're looking around like, where's the boxes? Nothing was happening for about an hour. So you're just sitting there twiddling your thumbs trying to come up with something creative. But hope everyone got out yesterday and voted wherever you may be if you had your primaries yesterday. And we had a low turnout here. So
it's one of those primary, midterm, no, this is a presidential. That's yeah. It's good. We're gonna hear a lot about it coming up. All right, going back to the story that Chris Lowe wrote about Nick Saban's retirement. What was the thing that surprised you the most in the story? Because it wasn't one factor, but it was a lot of factors. I think the thing that surprised me the most was that he actually told Greg Byrne in 2022. In 2022.
right,
hey,
yeah.
You know what? I can't do this forever. And you know what? It's going to be sometime soon. Like, I was like, whoa, like I just couldn't imagine that coming out of his mouth,
Yeah, I know that really surprised me. The 2-year basically notice. He was putting them on notice that this was coming, and more, this was going to be real soon. But when he took that trip with Miss Terry to Florida, to Jupiter, that's when they really started having a heart-to-heart conversation of this whole retirement deal.
Yeah.
And they were totally, they didn't know, and even when I believe when they got back to Tuscaloosa, they still didn't know
Yeah.
if he wanted to continue to coach or not. But as far as the factors are concerned, that we've heard about, probably the most surprising factor would be the lack of discipline on the team.
Yeah, that man, you make a great point. To hear him talk about that and to just say, "Hey, this isn't what we're all about," and
Yeah.
realize like I can't control
Yeah.
the team enough to have the respect for the game that we have instilled since we've been here, like from the very beginning up until the end. And they did a lot of great things this year. I mean, look, they could have won the national championship. I mean,
Yeah.
they're right there. I mean, they
They were
had
there.
a couple breaks,
Yeah.
But just to know that it's about NIL and it's about transfer portal, and I just didn't feel like that, man. I never felt like that was
See,
the reason,
on
but
the
now I do. I see that being one of those things where he's just like, I'm not dealing with this. Then you get everybody together and they're like, well, 80% of the players are asking him after you lost the national championship in overtime about their playing time, transfer portal, and money.
Yeah, when normally that time is normally devoted to evaluating the talent about the NFL draft, or something like that.
Yeah, right. Or being motivated to win the championship.
Or being
let's win this.
Yeah, exactly. But just as well as I do that Nick Saban's a control freak.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, he wants to control everything. And there's a couple things he couldn't control, and that was the NIL and the transfer portal. And that, I think that bothered him. And I think that it bothered him too about the discipline. It's like I've lost control of it. Not only I've lost control of, I hate to say it, I've lost control of the team, but he may have felt that way. And then he thought, and now we've got this money situation, and how do you navigate that, and the portal, and navigating this, and recruiting, and I'm getting up there in age, and everything.
This guy's uncle thinks he's an agent, and then this kid, catches.
Yeah.
He has two good games. One of them's against Auburn, and now he thinks he's worth $500 million. He thinks he's worth $500,000, and he's going to transfer. I mean, it's like, what do you do, right?
Yeah, and even the recruiting part, going into the house of these kids, used to it'd be like, look, you're going to get a great education. Look at the number of players that we've sent to the NFL. Look at how many national championships we've won. You're a great player. You're going to be well taken care of here at the university, and we're going to compete for championships, or you in. And then it turns into going into the house, and just like you say, well, we can provide all this, but then Dad may say, yeah, but George has offered us, $1 million or whatever. I'm just throwing a number out there.
Yeah, right.
And then it's like, what do you do? It's like, what? This is, like I mentioned before, on other shows, and this one too. This isn't the college football I know, man. I don't know.
But they're not going to be able to fix this? I mean, like, I don't.
No, they've opened up Pandora's box, man. Yeah. It's out of control. It's a Wild West.
Like, it was like one Supreme Court ruling, and it just changed our college football lives forever. I'm thinking like, hey, guys should get some money if they sell his jersey. If you can go out and get an autograph, And then Texas A&M was like, well, we'll just pay everybody. And then
yeah.
Well, I guess we'll all pay everybody,
Yeah. Yeah.
And we were so lucky to have Coach Saban, where it was like for years it didn't matter. Like the kids still wanted to come.
Yeah. Yeah. Getting some information in my ear that Womack is lost in the athletic complex. He doesn't know where the press conference room is. Okay, all right. Yeah. The poor guy probably doesn't even know where you go for the press conference. He's so new.
Yeah. How funny is that?
But no, we're waiting on Coach Womack and hopefully some players after practice, and they may have taken a little extra time today. Who knows? Normally they will hit the field. I think at 3:25.
Mm-hmm. What time did DeBoer get on last time? I know I was in the middle of doing the podcast with Jake Coker and John Lieber.
Yeah.
And if you guys haven't checked that out, it's at Roll Tide Pods. So we got together with the former 20-game winner and guy that played for the Yankees. He went to South Alabama and he showed up in an Auburn shirt, but we let him in, and
you let him in
we let him in. We actually had a good time with his kids go to Auburn, but I wouldn't consider him an Auburn fan. He's a Nebraska fan.
Did he have a one of those bumper stickers that says "My kids go to Auburn and so does my money"? you know those cheesy stickers we used to see all the time. I don't know, but an honor student at Jasper Junior High School. Well, whoop-de-doo.
Yeah, you'll love this. He walked in and he saw my license plates. You know, I value my license plates, and he collects license plates. So right off the bat, we were, showing him like I got all my Alabama ones, which now the one that I had when I was a student, which was current back then, is now, obviously back in style because we're using that A again, the elephant jumping through the A.
Oh man, I love that.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of that.
Mm-hmm. Some differences in practice, we know that Milroe is, is going to be right now is taking the reps with the number ones. We know that Austin Mack played with DeBoer last year on his team. He knows the offense, and it sounds like Simpson and Lonergan are kind of both right there neck and neck as well. So it's that battle to me is interesting because we talked about it. Milroe right now is the guy. And what really helps him is, did you hear where Terrion Arnold said that he'll get to the football complex at like 3:30 in the morning?
Yes, I saw that.
I've heard this. Now I've heard this, but you guys know, if you've listened to me, I've heard from my intel people that this is a habit of his, like, and he doesn't do anything fun. He just studies football in the complex.
Yeah, that was impressive. Look, you spent a lot of time in college. I flunked out, but you know how it is being a college student and an athlete. Well, and an athlete too on top of it. Getting there at like 3:30 in the morning, man, that's not a typical thing a 20, 21-year-old, 19-year-old would do,
Right.
But to answer your question a few minutes ago, DeBoer, excuse me, got to the presser at about 6:10. So he was a little late, but
so I'm curious. I mean, like the information that we have, I'm just gonna look at it one more time because I know there's some other people that are waiting. It's not just us, but we were told that he was going to be out at 6:00. Yeah, it says defensive players and assistants, right?
Correct.
So I don't know. We'll stick around. I'm still expecting him to pop on here. But it's the thing about the everything that's going on right now. It's the first time that we're doing it. You're talking about a new practice schedule. You're talking about a new style of working with the media, which I feel like is a great way of doing it. I think that being open with the local media is a big deal. I'm not saying that you still don't work with the great national guys, but for every one Chris Lowe, there's like, 5 or 6 other guys that I wouldn't put anywhere close to that category,
Yeah.
And so having, where you could actually have someone at practice, getting some film of the team, and seeing what those guys look like, which really it all looks the same to me. It's
Yeah.
just fun to see what a guy looks like that, what's Ryan Williams look like in that, that Alabama helmet, for the
Yeah.
first time or whatever.
Yeah.
So
So, anyway, we hopefully we'll learn more about the defense coming up here in just a few minutes. But I'm looking through some of the pages here and see if I can find any information as well as, like I say, this is all new to everyone. The way they're doing things, I will say that the way they're doing their press conferences are not the same as they have in the past with Coach Saban. So we're kind of learning a little bit about that as well as we go.
it's one of those things where what they've done is the program now reflects Kalen DeBoer's personality. And his personality is a personality that is a little bit more easygoing. Obviously he's not going to be screaming and yelling and using, strong language. Not that there was,
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with any of that. That's a great way of communicating for Coach Saban, and catching attention. Coach DeBoer is a different guy. And so, in the press conferences, there were times where Saban would get pretty animated about questions and, and what people were trying to get at with those questions, which is always pretty funny to me. But yeah, I mean, I think that, we're seeing kind of the beginning of what things are going to look like in the fall.
Mm-hmm.
I'm still excited about the 8A game. When you look at what's going on, that you're going to be strong at quarterback. You're going to be strong at running back. I got a feeling that they're going to figure out the offensive line. I don't know why I'm not concerned, even though they lost their best offensive lineman to the NFL draft. I think that, that they're going to be good on the offensive line. And I also think that, with all of that said, that the offense in general is going to be good, right? I'm
Mm-hmm.
concerned about the defense, and so what's the defense going to look like? What are we going to do about pass rush? Are we going to be able to fill in the corners? What's the transfer portal going to look like once spring practice is over?
Mm-hmm.
And that's a question to me.
I'm not sure if we're going to get to the press conference. I don't know if it has been moved or what. I am getting some information about today's practice, though. Mick, if you want to talk about that, we can
Yeah.
now. Obviously, a lot of changes, and we talked about this in the media. We mentioned this was their first day to observe, and just like I said, it was a beautiful 71-degree afternoon. So something we talked about on this morning's show was the music playlist.
Oh, nice.
Guess what, Mick? We found out what's on the playlist.
Hey, there we go. What do we got?
We finally found out what's on the playlist, which is very new to this program. And it's all clean versions. No dirty words. No dirty words.
That would not surprise me. I mean,
No dirty words. But Drake is on there,
okay.
DaBaby, Kodak Black, and Wolf Mother.
Wolf
on
Mother.
there. Yeah, Wolf Mother. I like Wolf Mother. Yeah, which I like a lot of different music, but and I was right again for the first time in my life, Mick. The media was allowed to watch the drills, but no 11-on-11 football. No 11-on-11. And some of the reports that we're getting out of this was that the media left at after the ninth practice period. That is when the observation time was over. I don't know how many periods they have, but but a lot of notes being and we'll credit AL.com for this. Matt Stahl has put out, and Nick Alvarez, two good reporters there for AL.com, kind of putting their notes together, and they are focusing in on the defense, and the groupings there on the offensive line was Pritchett at left tackle, Booker was at left guard. This is on the offensive line.
Yeah, yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
If I said defensive, I'm sorry, but
no, I got you.
Brockermeyer was at center. Roberts at right guard, Formby at right tackle, and Betran at left tackle, left guard. Yeah. So they had some different groupings, and very high energy, as was reported in the first practice on Monday.
Do you think if Brockermeyer is like a great center, where people are going to be like happy that he didn't play last year? Can you imagine
with a center, man? I tell you, that has been such a big topic the whole time. Let's just look. I don't care who's at center. Just snap the frickin' ball right, okay? That's all we need.
Yeah.
But once again, the quarterback situation, Milroe and Simpson were throwing together. Mack and Lonergan throwing together.
Okay.
Working on basics, handoffs with the running backs. Milroe was working with Justice Hayes. Simpson was working with Jam Miller. Mack with Richard Young, and Lonergan with Daniel Hill.
Okay.
We did have the tight end, Dupree. He wore a black non-contact jersey. So, of course, he's that transfer from Maryland.
Yeah.
But interesting notes out of the first practice. And by the way, not only was the media there, but I heard Kool-Aid McKinstry was on the sidelines watching.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I saw where Drake Kirkpatrick Jr. is going to wear his dad's number. Do you see
Isn't that cool?
Yeah, it is cool.
I love that. And
you could just have some of the success that Dad had.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, no kidding.
You talk about
and I think he has a great chance of doing that.
Yeah. Byron jumped in and he said, I got a feeling Saban is going to get bored with retirement. How would Bama fans feel if he coached West Virginia? You know, he's from West Virginia. Wouldn't that be something? The problem is that the clock's on him. I mean, if he's not going to be able to be retired long, because he was tired this year. I mean, it's not going to get any easier, but I would be all right. I mean, I wouldn't want to see him somewhere else, but man, I'll tell you what, if you wanted to go back home and give it a run at West Virginia, I mean, as long as he's not coming down here and taking all our players from us, like
yeah.
Remember, he used to just suck them dry out of Louisiana when he was first.
Man, yeah, you ain't kidding, buddy. He was the king of Louisiana, but I don't think he's gonna coach again. I mean, I think if he was going to coach, he would have just kept coaching in Alabama. I don't see that happening. But if it does happen, hey, good for him. But I think he's really going to take on that role at ESPN, and I think this is going to be a very entertaining Saban that we really haven't seen a whole lot of. I think his personality is really going to shine. He's going to. He's supposed now his coverage with ESPN is supposed to start with the draft.
Yeah, so they'll get our first glimpse.
Yeah,
and he's a good one to add to ESPN. I mean, they need as many Nick Sabans as they can get right now.
Yeah, an analyst like him. I mean, the greatest to ever coach. Uh, to have him break down the X's and O's and talk football, man.
I know.
Could you imagine sitting there picking this guy's brain?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I'm curious to see kind of what he's going to be willing to say and what he's going to not be willing to say.
Yeah,
And I'm still hearing that, there's people that are still waiting. I don't know why this hasn't started. And look, I mean, it could be that we just misread this, but I say we do another couple minutes, get in maybe
sure.
7:05 or something, and if it doesn't happen, then we sat here for an hour, and got to talk, which was fun because I felt like that story that Chris Lowe said that put out um
Yeah,
was really worth talking about. I
yeah.
felt like that story um was the kind of the back scene of how that all happened, and I was curious about that, what it took to get what's Saban leaving, why he left, and then and then how they got DeBoer.
You know what I'll be interested in, and this is coming. You know it is. You know the because what happened a few years ago with this unauthorized biography. Can't wait for the. I'm a biography person anyway. Books. Um, I can't wait for a Saban true biography to come out in his words, and that's going to come one day. That'll be a great read.
I wonder if he's going to talk about the time that Kirby left and took the depth chart.
Oh yeah,
You
that'd
know,
be a
is
great story.
is he gonna real is anyone gonna ever do a true story about the stuff that we know Lane Kiffin did? And if
Ooh,
anyone ever put that out, it would I think you'd understand why that Alabama wouldn't want him as their head coach, and maybe
yeah,
he says he's, quit drinking and stuff, but just unbelievable
yeah, right.
stories if they're true that you would be like, "Man, wow." Bob, another great comment from Bob. He said that they're saying that there could be a Manning cast 2 with Saban and Belichick. Do you think they have enough personality to carry a Manning cast?
No, no, they would have to have a third person on there to really spark them. You know how bland Belichick is. Good grief.
I know.
Saban. He's pretty bland too. Uh, but you know, but they would have to have a dynamic personality to be that third person to come in and really lead
Pat
them.
McAfee.
I was thinking that,
Yeah.
and I think Saban was at his best on the Pat McAfee show.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep, and, when I started seeing him on Pat McAfee and he was talking about the, retirement on there, and we did a couple stories on it here, and I got, hate mail from some people, and it was like, it's not that I'm trying to will the guy to retire, it was that I was hearing that there was a chance he was gonna retire, and I was hearing it from some pretty good sources, and because of that, I mean, I wasn't really sure until I saw it, but I wanted to make sure that I did know what that okay, if it happens, what's that mean, and you got to cover those things, it's not always fun, but you got to cover them, and no one wanted to see that.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that's true. More practice notes from today. Very fast pace. But they say Womack on the defensive side really was working with the linebackers and had a lot of high energy, and that's exciting too. I love those high energy coaches yeah, getting in there and getting down and dirty and the DBs. Now we've talked about this before, Mick. They worked heavily on speed and reflex drills,
Yeah.
at least during the media time. And we're early in all this. They're implementing all this stuff, and um, it'll be an interesting A-Day. But the first day for the media to see, we're starting to get information coming out about kind of what's been going on, at least during the observation time.
All right. Well, look, I'm guessing that maybe we kind of misread this and that they're not going to have the coaches speak. And if it is, I mean, we've been here waiting on it. But let me ask you to kind of run through what the practice schedule is going to look like for the rest of spring camp. But let's kind of start there, and then we'll kind of we'll kind of talk about a couple more things and wrap it up.
Okay. They will practice again at 2:50 Friday.
So they're doing every other day right now.
Right now, yeah.
Just to kind of stretch it out, just to have more practice before the 8A game.
Right. Okay, I see a note here. The player and assistant coaches, apparently their availability was following practice on the field.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
So we're learning too as we go along. It's different now.
Surprise!
Surprise!
Surprise! Surprise!
I missed Wheel of Fortune for this.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding.
Right.
But no. So we know that now, okay?
All right.
But Friday, so after the practice on Friday, the offensive players and assistants will but see, I still don't know how that works. I guess the media will be let in after practice because that's not open to the media on Friday.
Okay.
And then now we got spring break coming up, Mick. So after Friday's practice, the team will not reconvene until March 19th.
Okay.
And then we'll have I think that week is the pro day on that Wednesday.
Yeah.
But yeah, the practices will be staggered from week to week, and we'll but a total of 14 practices, and it'll all culminate with Saturday, April 13th, 8A game at 3:00.
All right, nice. Well, guys, we appreciate hanging out with you, and we'll keep jumping on here and letting you know what's going on. And look, we didn't get the press conference that we thought we were going to get, but you know what? We still had a great time hanging out with you guys and talking Alabama football. So like and subscribe if you're not a member of what we're doing. Give us a thumbs up. We try to post the show every morning. We'll continue to do that, but don't forget that we're brought to you by Pearl River Resort over in Choctaw. You're talking about Philadelphia, Mississippi, hour and a half from Tuscaloosa, 2 hours from Birmingham. You got Dancing Rabbit. That's the Augusta that you can play. You've got the table games and the slots. You got the Timeout Sports Lounge where you can go make Vegas-style wagers. Get away for the weekend. Go check it out for yourself. They got a ton of great acts coming up as Pearl River celebrates their 30th anniversary. The Wallflowers. You got Kool and the Gang. You got Brian McKnight. You got Boys to Men. You got Lone Star. You got Gretchen Wilson. And I mean, the list goes on and on, Brett.
Yes. Great entertainment, a lot of fun. And I can't wait to head over to Pearl River Resort and check it all out, man. It's going to be a great time.
All right, guys. Hey, roll tide, everybody, and we will talk to you again real soon.